Hello, I'm Dr. Robert Weaver. I'm the director and neuropsychologist of the Weaver Center in Wayland, Massachusetts. And I hope that you've enjoyed some of my other videos, which you can find at our website, www.weavercenter.org. And today, I've had a lot of feedback in terms of things that I should address. And one thing is that apparently I rock quite a bit, which I have always rocked ever since I was a kid. That's my form of hyperactivity. Yeah, I can always stop it, like most kids can stop, so that they can pay attention. But the more I stop, the less I can think. So I will try not to rock so much. Others have said, geez, I practically get seasick watching me. Well, I apologize. I'll try to keep things as stable as I can. I can already see I'm rocking again. Anyway, I apologize. Anyway, as I've mentioned before, I'm a neuropsychologist. I am the director of the Weaver Center in Wayland, Massachusetts. And I have severe dyslexia and attention deficit, executive functions, and I've had certainly self-esteem issues and discouragement as a result of those things. So I am so glad to be in this field and helping others, kids, adolescents, and adults and couples, families that struggle with the same. And I'm very fortunate to have had a lot of support while I was going along through. So today I want to tackle one of the largest difficulties that especially adolescents, but kids and many adults have, and that is managing video time. All technological or digital devices generally, with high interest anyway, excite certain neurochemicals in our brain, mostly dopamine, but I'll leave some of the medical and neurological issues to the side for the moment. I'm going to be talking about behavior and issues that make it very, very difficult, especially if you have, severe attention deficit. Because as I've mentioned before, attention deficit is not a deficit in attention. It's a deficit in regulation of attention. Therefore, what I mean by is that the more someone is not naturally interested in some activity that they have to do, the harder it is to initiate, to get started. And conversely, if someone is very interested, highly interested in some activity, then it's very, very difficult to inhibit or stop that activity. Those two transitions are among the most difficult transitions for folks with attention deficit they have, and what we spend a great deal of time in developing skills and working with folks to develop strategies to be able to initiate, which I've talked about before, get started. And today is about how to inhibit or stop something that's a very high interest, also very, very, very difficult, and creates a tremendous amount of conflicts at home. So the first thing that's really important, and if you wanted to read a little bit of an example of this, you could check out our website and look at the article I wrote some time ago about attention deficit, a curse and delight, because that's a bit about what I'm going to be talking about today. So the important thing is that we understand how difficult these things are for kids to start or stop high interest activities. These are neurological difficulties, not difficulties with regard to willfulness or intention or behavior. Obviously, there's behavior difficulties because if kids can't control, or adults can't control, their management of video games, then by its very nature, we require control from the outside. If we require, by the very nature that we can't control ourselves well, control from the outside, then by definition, we're going to have a lot of conflicts, right? Especially at those transition points. So the important thing to really know is that these are skills that our kids and adolescents and adults really need to work very, very conscientiously on, with a great deal of attention and concentration, which does not come naturally to us. So when we talk about how do you manage video game playing, right? There's several different things that are very important, and different techniques work for different families and different kids. So I'm going to review some of these things that you can do at home with your kids. And if you find it difficult with your kids, then what you might do is to ask an uncle or a neighbor or a friend that's an adult to go to look at this video and see if they can interact with your kids, because they are always somewhat novel. As parents, we can often say the same things to our kids that other people can say, but wow, they listen to them more than me. That's because we're familiar. All right. So the first thing that we talk about is that video playing is quite adaptive in this day and age. High-end coordination, rapid strategy development, thinking about different ways of approaching problems is certainly for many young folks. There's a social component to it. They're playing games together or teaming up together. So there's very good reasons to develop these skills and to have them be encouraged and appreciated. So what's the first thing that we could do? Well, number one, we could actually just watch our kids. Ask them if they mind. They usually don't. Most of the things that I'm going to talk about do take effort and energy by parents or those that are managing kids with regard to their video playing. Watching, seeing, asking questions, even though they're a little bothered, but every time that you can interact somewhat comfortably with your child about anything that's going on, if they can do two things at once, they're already beginning to develop skills. That might be hard for them, but the more they can, then the more they can have what we call divergent thinking. Okay? The next thing that we talk about is helping our kids practice stopping the video game. For example, you could say, listen, I'd like to have you be able to play video games, and I'll tell you what, if we can do this little activity for a couple, 2-3 times today, then you can play for half hour, 45 minutes, an hour. Okay, maybe you do this on the weekend where you've got more time. Right? But the idea is that you ask the person, even an adolescent, you ask them, it will be very nice and helpful for me, not for you, but always say for me, because I'd really rather not have conflicts. Let's practice stopping. It's a really hard thing to do. You might think it's easy, but it's not, okay? So just start playing a game, and like within 30 seconds or maybe a minute, I'll just ask you to stop. And stop, turn the whole game off, and then start it again. And if you can do that, that'll be cool. Maybe we can go for 2 minutes the next time, or 3, right? And we're just going to do this 1 or 2 or 3 times, but I want you to have the feeling, I'd like to have the feeling that you can have good control over stopping something that's so interesting and important and nice for you, okay? And it provides a nice little place to reduce some distractions, some anxiety, some apprehension. So it's not a bad thing, but managing it is very important. Getting started on high-interest activities is never a problem, but stopping is. Right? So you just have some fun if you can, or have somebody else have some fun, or if one parent is more influential about stopping than the other, just trying not to have any conflict whatsoever. Let's say there's some difficulty with stopping on these short, brief periods. You could say, listen, I notice that when I'm yelling or screaming, you tend to get off, or get off sooner, right? So you say, what I'm going to do is just yell and scream. I'm not going to be mad, but I'll just do that so that we can, get some strategies and some experience with stopping the video games. Okay, so let's see if there's a way to make this, fun or interesting or whatever. I could use a bell, or I could use, just something that will allow me to know that you are able to turn things off. So I'd really like to have you do this for me. So That's one way to be, and then try to do that every once in a while. The more they can stop, maybe the more time they can earn, right? So it's very nice to be able to focus on getting off something of high interest, just like it's those strategies that I gave you to get started on tasks that are of low interest. Okay, so and so the second part of that I already mentioned, which is if there's a way that they can stop, right, then they get an opportunity to earn more time the following day. If it's a problem, they just have the same amount of time. You don't want to be punitive, because every time you're punitive and somebody just gets angry because you're getting less, then all of the learning goes to the anger, and it isn't being incorporated as a learning experience. So if that's why I say if you can interrupt in a fun way, even if it's loud and obnoxious, you're not angry or upset. You're just really helping with the disengagement of the activity. Another way to go about this, right, is some kids really struggle with it. So it might be that they need to have video games over by a certain time in the day, because we know that if kids are engaged in digital activities, even TV, before bedtime, they're already stimulated. For many of us, it's hard to get to sleep anyway. So there really needs to be some transitional items from high interest, not to low interest. Like, not a good idea to say, okay, stop the video games and get to your homework. That's going from the highest activity to the lowest interest activity. You're going to have the most transitional difficulties. But if you say, listen, let's play video games, we'll have dinner, and then afterwards we can read or do something else. Let's have our video times over at a certain time in the evening. Some people say, listen, I know that you all use your phones. Let's have your phones come down, at 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock. We'll get them all into the chargers, and we'll just keep them there so that everybody's got the same. And we often need to say that, what's fair in our family isn't what's equal. Some kids have to do that earlier. Some kids do that later. If someone comes in and they've really had a tough time with this, sometimes we say that because this can be addicting too later on, that's why we watch this, that's why we allow it, and we encourage ways of getting off it. And in fact, I have significant difficulties with video games. I can't play them anymore. I mean, when I was much younger, the very beginnings of Atari and some of these old games, so many times I said, oh, one more. Just like when you hear our kids say, oh, just in a minute, that usually means they intend to, but it's never going to happen, right? And then you hear all kinds of, well, if I stop now, I'm going to lose my level. Well, you can regain your levels. That's what you want to teach them that is possible. So, at other times, it's important to say, listen, not during the week. Just don't. It's hard to have the conflicts during the week or whatever. And again, you could be flexible with that to be able to say, listen, if you really think you can manage your time, one of the best things to do is a timer. You put a timer on, and as soon as that timer goes off, let's practice stopping right away. Not one more. As soon as you say in a minute, it's almost never going to happen. So through these methods, our younger kids, our adolescents, and many of our adults, right, get stuck on these things, and it really interferes with productivity. It's a good thing to do in moderation, but very, very difficult to do without moderation. So I hope this is helpful. I do have many suggestions that people have given me, so I will continue to do videotapes. I hope you enjoyed this one. And remember, the more you understand something in terms of how difficult it is, the less you'll see it as willful and blameful. And that's always the best way to help us. All right. Thanks so much. And by all means, don't hesitate to make a comment. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.